What is a dirty business tactic that you know and everyone should be aware of it? If you're buying a used car and it's parked over a puddle, they don't want you to look underneath. In Nova Scotia, Canada, severance pay is paid on the average of your last 30 days of pay. This means that some companies will actually reduce your hours to minimum your last month with them if they are going to lay you off. Happened to me wife. She worked for this company for 5 years. Worked 35 plus hours per week. Suddenly she wasn't getting shifts. Boom. Layoff notice. Happened to other folks too. Not sure if this fits, but if you are offered a raise for taking on new responsibilities, get it in writing. Just learn that the hard way. When finding a home for your elderly parents, set up an appointment but come in a few minutes early and say, "Don't ask if you can walk around for a quick look." The receptionist likely won't refuse you, and the salesperson won't be ready for you. These places like to show you only the stuff they want you to see when being led around by a salesperson. Chat with a resident or a staff member. They'll be the most honest with you. Offering insurance on anything that does not have the potential to be financially debilitating. Want to insure your DVD rental? Duck off. Some stores increase the price of a product and then put it on sale by a percentage of the fake higher price. Mattress stores that have the find it anywhere else for cheaper. You get your money back. Deal contract with the manufacturer to make the exact same model of bed, but with a model name specific to that store, so nobody can ever cash in on that deal. The three-tiered pricing approach, especially for things like roofing or basement waterproofing. The contractor starts with a ridiculously high-priced quote for way more stuff than you asked for. Steps down to a more moderate quote of what you wanted with a few bells and whistles. Then the third quote is for what you requested. This gives you the illusion of choice and reduces sticker shock because although your requested absolute minimum service is really expensive, it's only half the cost of their recommended repairs. Petco will sell you non-aquatic plants specifically for your aquarium that will poison everything in the tank. We have many more clients interested in this limited offer. The closing down sale in the shop that never closes down. It's just in closing down sale mode continuously. I'm amazed shops are allowed to get away with this. I worked in the collections department of Discover Card for a while. One thing they did, maybe still do, to lure customers to them is offer 0% APR for the first year. People would jump on this and transfer all their debt onto their new Discover Card, and then the company would conveniently not send the first month's bill. In the fine print of the agreement, it states that if you miss even one payment in that first year, your APR will jump to 29.95%. Half of my calls were to these new customers who would then proceed to throw a fit because they didn't ever get the bill, and I had to explain to them that it was their job to know when the bill was due, and sending one was just a courtesy extended by the company. I hated that job. It ate away at my soul. A local lawn maintenance business takes advantage of unsuspecting customers in 3 ways. 1. On monthly bills. They double the state tax. Instead of being, say, 6%, it'll actually be 12% if you check the math. 2. Without discussing it with homeowners, they charge double for double cuts when the grass is a little taller in areas than usual. So, if you had agreed to pay $50 per mowing, the monthly bill says $100 for each visit. They never ask, they just do it and charge double. In most cases, it's just a small patch of the yard that has taller grass, not the entire thing. 3. They're supposed to mow once per week, but without telling customers first, they start mowing every 5 days, which means they get to charge for more mowing visits per month than necessary. When moving out of a rental apartment house, make sure to take lots of pictures and ask the owner landlord to do a walkthrough with you. Video the walkthrough. That way if they do not give you all your deposit back, you have something to take to court versus a he said which you generally lose. When you turn in cable internet equipment, make sure to get a full receipt showing what they took in and the date it was received. Scan this and email to a couple different email accounts. Comcast and others are bad about losing the equipment a couple years later, after you forget, and then billing you. Sire. My elementary school would host a fun day every year, where there were booths, games, activities, etc. They'd get the kids to help out with various small tasks too. One year when I was about 9, my task was to help sell the little potted geraniums, $0.25 each. Well, no one was buying any of them. So I had a brilliant idea. I made a new sign that said buy one for $1. Get 3 free. Those little geraniums sold like hotcakes after that. I was so proud of myself I told the principal. He did not approve, though he let me do it anyway. It's a wonder I didn't turn into a little Gordon gecko. Probably only the boneritis kept it in check. An older fellow I know had a bodega and he'd put a can of cream corn on the counter by the register. This was some time ago, so the van had a price tag of $17. He sold that can of cream corn to everyone who bought anything there. If they realized they were paying too much, he'd just say he thought that was their can of corn. Most people didn't notice though, and he sold that same can of cream corn maybe 20 times a day. In high-end IT, vendors will often go dark in the months before a service contract renewal or infrastructure refresh is needed. The idea behind this is that the customer is forced to come to them, or they can come to the customer with little enough time to complete the refresh that they are either forced to make a purchase on bad footing for price negotiations or renew service agreements for an additional year at a higher rate while migrating to new gear. I waited tables in a restaurant and one time I decided to pour a cup of soup into an empty bowl. A bowl of soup costs a good bit more than a cup of soup at the restaurant. The cup filled up the bowl to the top. It's not dirty as it's legal, but there is a reason that stores ask you to donate some amount to a charity or fund. They can use your donation to help them get a tax write-off. If someone starts trying to trade away all their sheep because they have so much of it while they've been sitting on a development card for half the game, do not trade. In France it's hard to fire or lay off people, so when big companies need to clean house a bit, they move the office to a new location quite distant from the current one. In the process they reduce the office size from 50,000 seats to 30,000 because they've estimated that amount of people will resign rather than endure a 4-hour commute. But officially totally you still have your job if you want. We are not laying you off, but I need you in the office every day. Or you could resign if you don't like the new location. Nestle did that and apparently it's fairly common now for multinationals around Paris. Watch the ever-changing price of pre-packaged food goods at most grocery stores. One day the price may seem to go down, but if you check the weight, it has also gone down. Snack foods do this constantly. I like buying these breaded frozen chicken breast fillets at my local grocery store. Been buying them for a long time. They were $11.99 CDN for 908 grams, 2 lbs. Last week they were $11.99 CDN for 750 grams, 1.65 lbs or 1 pound. NOZS. That product just went up 21% in price. Edit. As you preparing to code pointed out, it's a 27% price increase, not 21%. Even worse. Yelp is an extortion ring. Fake reviews. I worked for a startup that had a sleazy CEO and got most, if not all, of their business by fake Yelp, Google, Glassdoor and other review sites in our industry. CEO was a compulsive liar and had no morals. Side note, I left the company and it went straight downhill as it was a house of cards anyway and I had a key position. The CEO ended up calling his business partner of 3 years and telling him that all the money was gone and he is leaving the country forever. Then didn't leave. He still has the company open with a much smaller staff and can only imagine what he is saying to keep it afloat. Okay, done with the rant. It is easy to see fake reviews now since they are usually a bit more eccentric and polished and I have lost all faith in them. At Home Depot and Lowe's there are cacti with plastic flowers glued onto them. And my grandmother was in the hospital. Her landscaper and handyman both contacted me to tell me she hadn't paid them and they'd been trying to reach her and on. I'd already paid both bills from her account and when I questioned them, they remembered real quick. The "you won a TV $5,000 base boat" scams at car dealerships. Generally, you get a flyer in the mail that says scratch off X to see if you won. You always win the biggest prize, but when you read the fine print, You actually only win the right to spin some wheel or put your name in a box for a drawing. The employee's friends and family always actually get the boat TV cash. Your win is just a tactic to get you into the dealership. A fun thing to do is waste the manager's time. Go to the dealership, prize flyer in hand, find a nice car, one with all of the options. Ask for every dealer add-on they offer and tell them you don't want to waste time negotiating. You have cash. Talk to the manager and keep going back to him/her. Insist on a test drive with the manager. Convince them you want to buy the car and get to the paperwork phase. Then, just before you sign, inform them that they haven't sold you a car. They've sold you on the idea of buying a car. Get the manager's card and tell them you'll be dropping their card in a hat with other dealership managers' cards. Card will be selected at random and that dealership manager will be notified by mail in 4 to 6 weeks. Let them know that the actual car you buy may not be the one used in your promotion. Update. Thank you, kind stranger. I know a guy who does pest control who specializes in raccoon removal. He takes the raccoons from one house in one neighborhood, then takes and releases it in another neighborhood, then waits for the people there to reach out to him to remove the raccoon from their home. When dealing with a salesperson, they will wait for a third hard no before ending their sales pitch. When I worked at Handm, we used to do some sneaky stuff with setting up the mannequins displays. Whenever we had a supply of shirts that were really ugly and weren't selling well, we'd put the ugly item on the mannequin and it would sell out very quickly. This isn't necessarily the dirtiest trick, but it worked pretty well for pushing really ugly clothes. Mechanics and other car servicing places will often put many additional tasks replacements on your bill or imply that you should do things immediately. While many of their recommendations are things to keep in mind, often the tasks they are talking about are not immediately necessary and can be put off for a while before there is an issue. This in no means is me saying that you shouldn't regularly take your car for servicing. The higher priced items like prime rib and seafood is typically at the end of the buffet line, and cheaper, more filling options like bread and mashed potatoes are at the front. They hope you fill up your plate space, stomach space by the time you get to the high ticket items. If you're buying a used car, or any car for that matter, the check engine light should temporarily come on when you start the vehicle. If it doesn't, the dash has been tampered with to mask a potential issue. I was a waitress at a family-owned restaurant that paid me $0.10 more than the minimum wage. They were able to require me to turn over all tips that I never saw again because they paid me over minimum wage. I think this is technically legal, but sleazy nonetheless. I made really great tips and it was hard turning the money over. It's also pretty deceptive to the customer, who thinks their money is going to the wait staff, not the restaurant. If you ever get a demonstration of a service from a company, they will always use their very best, most experienced staff, but once you've signed up you might find you've got the dregs that they couldn't foist on anyone else working for you. Some companies on Amazon will offer to refund your purchase of their item on PayPal if you give them a good review. That way it still looks like a verified purchase through Amazon. I work with a lot of different body shops, and in my area the big thing to do is to enhance the damage to customers' cars. I don't mean they try and negotiate harder. I mean they actively create more damage to previously undamaged panels, usually in ways that don't affect the function and are hidden to the customer, in order to get the insurance company to pay them more money. In my area, while not every shop does this, I would say the honest ones are the minority, and it screws the customer over in the long run. The shop might promise that they will save you your deductible, but in the end you end up with a car that has unrepaired damage, or you have to pay out of pocket if the insurance company catches the shop enhancing. And the sad thing is there is almost no way to know which shops do this when you pick a shop. Jacking Google business pages. Basically, if a Google business listing isn't claimed and controlled by a company, a competing company can weasel their way in and direct people to their business by, say, changing the phone number. There was an article recently about how drug counselors in the Philadelphia area had it happen to them. Their listing phone number was changed to an 800 number, which directed callers to an inpatient rehab facility in Florida. It was discovered when one of these counselors started noticing his patients suddenly not showing up. He called one of them and found out he was at this facility in Florida. Real estate gurus who sell their courses online in downloadable digital format and say that we must buy now since they only have a few courses remaining, and when they're gone, they're gone. How the duck do they run out of digital, downloadable courses? Do their computers run out of binary ones and zeros after so many downloads? Sounds stupid, but people fall for this ploy regularly. Places that change your oil put a sticker on your windshield to remind you to get it changed again after 3,000 miles. In reality, you could go at least double that distance and it will probably be fine. People lie about salary, starting pay, raises, etc. all the time. Learn to play hardball. For a multi-million-dollar company, another $10 20k is nothing. My office had a lockdown on raises over 3%, and going into an annual review I learned that my boss had lied and underpaid me for the starting position. He claimed they had a $60k budget for the position and couldn't exceed it. I found out the last person in the job got paid $75k, so I got an offer from a competitor for over double my current pay. Knew they couldn't afford to lose me with the amount of work coming in, and slid my offer letter over to my boss during the review. They matched the offer, gave me a $10,000 bonus up front, and even cut me into a percentage of a business line. The meeting was awkward as hell, and it was difficult to do, but it's business. Know the difference between a gigabit and a gigabyte. 1 gigabit megabit kilobit is only equal to 0.125 gigabyte megabyte kilobytes. A lot of services, like Verizon, advertise their data caps and data speeds in gigabits so as to confuse customers who don't know the difference. If your plan has a 8 gigabit data cap, then you can only really use 1 gigabyte of data. Likewise, your 100 Mbps internet speed only has a peak download of 12.5 megabytes per second. Always count every single note when exchanging currency. It's so easy for vendors, particularly smaller ones, to short bills from a stack of 100 or 1000 and claim innocence when, if, called out on it,